For the next 15 months, I am traveling 100% free. So what, you plan a couch surf? Nope, I'm actually gonna be flying multiple international business class flights, staying in 5-star hotels, all because I hacked the system. Okay, well, unlike you, some of us don't wanna end up in jail for hacking. Oh, it's not that type of hacking. This type of hacking is 100% legal, and it's something I highly encourage and recommend everyone to do. Travel hacking. Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I am gonna give you my definitive 4.5-step guide on how you can start hacking your way to free travel. Now, why listen to me? Well, I'm John of John's Finance Tips. In addition to having a passion for all things related to personal finance, I'm an absolute travel fiend. I still remember when I got my very first premium travel card in 2016. Fast forward a year later from there, I took my very first hacked flight. At the time, it was an $18,000 first class flight aboard Cathay Pacific. I paid less than $57 in taxes and fees out of pocket. And since then, I have redeemed for well over $100,000 of value in free travel. Things ranging from luxurious first class flights to business class flights that offer a double bed in the sky to 5-star resorts, all while paying next to nothing out of pocket. Unfortunately, the whole mess of 2019 to 2022 put a damper on my travel plans, but I'm excited to share that over the next 15 months, I am back to traveling. We're going to Thailand, China, the Maldives, Philippines, and I've managed so far to hack all of that for free. So if this sounds like something you're interested in, well, you've come to the right spot. Pop a squat, tap that little thumb icon. We're gonna go ahead and dive into today's video. Before we go over the 4.5 steps of how to travel hack, allow me to define for you what exactly travel hacking is. It's not as scary as it might sound. It does not involve a computer science degree. Travel hacking in its simplest form is taking the points and miles that you earn from credit cards, airlines, and hotels and redeeming them for more free travel. It can be as straightforward as booking a round-fare trip to Disney flying in economy for you and your family, or it could be as complex as a around-the-world itinerary all in business class while staying in 5-star resorts. Regardless of the complexity, the key is for both trips, you are getting a discount of well over 99, maybe even 99.9%. A quick note, even though this guide is gonna be focusing on how you can travel hack your way to getting free flights, the exact same concepts apply to hotels, and I would argue hotels are probably actually easier to travel hack than flights. All right, step 1. Actually, scratch that. Maybe we need like a step 0. This guide is me trying to take everything I have put in here over the last 6 or 7 years in the travel hacking space and giving it to you, which means it might seem a little bit overwhelming at first. My recommendation, watch the video, take some notes, try it out a little bit, and then come back and repeat and try to figure out what it is that you might have missed or you didn't understand. Don't be afraid to pause at each individual step, take some notes. Travel hacking is not something that's done like that. It does take a couple of tries, so please do not get frustrated. Step 1. Determine your destination. This is the foundation for anything, because how the heck are we gonna hack our way there if we don't know where we're going? Are you traveling domestically? Are you traveling internationally? Because that's largely going to shape out how difficult or easy it is to pull off the redemption. Of course, don't let it discourage you, but I do wanna put it out there. International itineraries are gonna take a little bit more legwork than domestic. And you also wanna think about the time of year you're traveling. Do you have kids? Are you bounded by a summer schedule or holiday schedule? Are you willing to travel, say, maybe during a peak season or maybe even off season for better availability? For example, I inadvertently booked a trip out to Thailand during monsoon season. Now, we're gonna be in Koh Samui, so it'll be pretty shielded, but regardless, that's probably why it was pretty available for me to fly from Boston all the way to Bangkok using just 87,000 Air Canada miles, and I get to fly on Singapore Airlines business class, and out of pocket, I probably pay less than $100 or $150. My biggest pro tip with timing is the more flexibility you can have at this stage, the better it is. If you are not locked into a certain 1 week, 2 week window, the better chances of you finding a good flight for very discounted, if not free. After we have time of year determined, now start thinking about how do you want to travel? Is it going to be in international first class? Is it international business class? Is it gonna be economy? Or is it domestic first class? Because how you travel is largely going to shape how much work you're going to have to put in. Basically, the higher and more premium you wanna be, the more effort you're going to have to put in. But again, do not let that discourage you, but just start really thinking about it. Hey, it's a big family. We just want to go to Disney. Okay, maybe it's economy for 5 people round trip. Or maybe you're solo or you're just traveling with one other person and you're like, hey, I wanna do a big trip. I wanna go to the Maldives or somewhere very exotic. I wanna be real bougie with it. That's entirely fine, but start thinking about that now. So in this step, once you figured out where you wanna go, when you wanna go, who's traveling, what class of service, my number one pro tip for you, this will help you tremendously: commit early. I have travel booked until August of 2024. I'm already looking at a group trip to Japan for April of 2025. It's not because I'm that much different, right? I've got schedules that I have to work around, but the biggest thing is I pick a travel destination, I pick a travel plan, I commit it, and I will schedule around it. I have people who come up to me all the time saying, hey, I wanna go somewhere, but I see no availability. Well, yeah, because you're trying to book a month or two in advance, and most of the times that's next to impossible. So if you can, no if, you must commit early to trips and schedule around it. That's it, end of story. And through every step, we're gonna take a look at an example booking. This example that I'm thinking of is maybe for a honeymoon in the Maldives for a couple, and we're gonna try to book out as far in advance as possible, so we're looking at May or June of 2024. Step 2, Google. Aren't you the expert here? What do you mean Google? Folks, as much as I wish I just had everything dumped in here of how to go from A to Z in every which way configuration, I don't. Google is my friend as much as it is absolutely going to be your best friend. So here's what I would recommend you search. Best way to travel to insert country on points. In our example, it's the best way to travel to the Maldives on points, and voila, we've got our search results. There's a billion different blogs on how to do it. My personal preference and the blog that I love the most is called Upgraded Points. They are probably the most in-depth when it comes to point redemptions, award bookings, and they're an amazing reference point. So we're gonna go ahead and click into the Upgraded Points blog here on how to travel to the Maldives on points. Highly recommend you take your time reading through all the options, but what's great about Upgraded Points is they kind of stack rank the best to worst redemption options. So as we're scrolling down here, we can see some of the better options are to use points from American Airlines or Etihad or Cathay or British Airways or Qatar. You can also use places like Reddit as well as Flyer Talk, though I think Flyer Talk gets a little bit more too in the weeds. But nonetheless, right now you're just on a fact-finding mission. How the heck do I even do this thing? And this is gonna give you a direction of where to start directing your focus. Two other tools that I like to use in this section are gonna be Travel Codex and Award Maximizer, because both are going to start giving you an idea of how many miles or points you're going to need to be able to pull off your free travel. The goal of this step before you can go to the next one is you need to figure out how many miles or how many points you need, and keep in mind taxes and fees. Certain programs are gonna charge more in taxes and fees than others, and so if you really wanna bring that cost as low as possible, you wanna keep that in mind. Now, you're not gonna be able to know that, but these blogs are going to tell you exactly that. So going back to the upgraded blogs post in our example, we wanna get to the Maldives for a honeymoon for 2 people. They recommend American Airlines. So it looks like one way in economy would be about 40,000 American Airlines miles. In business, it'd be 70,000. And for first class, it would be 115,000 American Airlines miles. And scrolling down a little bit further in the blog, they actually recommend the exact type of seat that they would fly to go to the Maldives, which would be the Qatar Airways Q Suite. Why? Well, it's because for couples, they offer a business class configuration that literally makes a double bed in the sky. Now that, I'm sure, for a honeymoon is chef's kisses. So we read a bit further into the blog and we see, wait a minute, Qatar Airways and American Airlines are partners, which would mean that you can use American Airlines miles to book for this Qatar Airways flight. So now we have an idea of what exactly we want to do, which is we want to fly to the Maldives. We want American Airlines miles, and we want to use American Airlines miles and redeem them for a Qatar Airways Q Suite business class flight. For those who are new, that probably just sounded like whoosh. And this section for newbies is where you are going to spend the most time. You are going to be knee deep in blogs, reading about the best way to do that, how to redeem for that. But that's fine, because you really need to have a clear understanding of where the heck you're getting points from, what type of points you are, before you start even getting any points. So spend the time here. Google various things, right? Maybe you don't want to go to the Maldives. Maybe you just want to go to Disney. Maybe you just want to go to Paris. But whatever it is, spend the time here reading through the blogs, because they're going to give you a good idea of, okay, how feasible is this redemption? Because sometimes they say, hey, this is a great flight, impossible to find award space. Then maybe you're like, oh, okay, maybe I don't want to try this flight, or maybe I don't want to go to that destination. But really, step 2, spend the time here, familiarize yourself with all the various options available before you go on to step 3. Step 3. You might have noticed I look a little bit different. That's because this video is shot a week later. Somehow I lost the audio footage on the original. Don't worry, I'm still here and the show is going on. So in step 3, we are earning points. Earlier, we figured out we need roughly about 70,000 American Airlines miles. You're probably thinking, so where do we get them? Why we just turn to Google. Exact same as the earlier steps, as much as I wish I always had this readily available, which I generally do, but every now and then, I even resort to Google. So go ahead, pop open your browser and just type in how to earn American Airlines miles. And right on that front page is one of my favorite blogs, Upgraded Points. I swear they're not sponsoring this video, they just do a really, really good job in the travel hacking community in providing information. So go ahead, pop open the blog, and you're gonna get all the different various ways that you can accumulate American Airlines miles. As you click into the blog and you scroll up and down, you're gonna see quickly that the easiest way to earn these miles/points is with credit cards, specifically sign-up bonuses from cards like the Citi co-branded card with American Airlines, the Barclays co-branded card with American Airlines, or you can also transfer points from Bilt, which is not listed here only because there's no sign-up bonus. And the fourth way is by transferring points from Marriott. Of all of those options, I would say your best bet is getting a sign-up bonus from Citi or Barclays, or transferring points from your Bilt MasterCard. For us, in this particular example, getting the flight is relatively straightforward. You get American Airlines miles, you book with those miles on a Qatar flight, there you have it. But sometimes there's one extra step, which is earning points on a credit card and then transferring those points to an airline and then making the booking. For example, if we wanted to fly just on Qatar Airways using Qatar Airways Avios, you've got a couple options. Option one, you open a Citi credit card like the Citi Premier, you take the sign-up bonus you earn from that card and you transfer it directly to Qatar Airways and make the booking. Or knowing that Qatar Airways and British Airways are able to interchange their Avios, you know that, okay, you might have a stash of American Airlines membership reward points. Then you transfer them to British Airways, and then you transfer them to Qatar Airways. Now, obviously that seems more complicated, but I'm hoping this is at least teaching you that within the points and miles game, there's various different ways to piece things together. Just because there's no direct one-to-one doesn't mean that there's not potentially a one-to-one-to-one. And as a rule of thumb, bank points, such as those from Capital One, from Chase, from American Express, or Citi, are always gonna be more valued than specific airline miles or hotel points because of the fact that those bank points that we mentioned earlier can be transferred to various flight partners and hotel partners, whereas airline miles with American Airlines can only be used in American Airlines. Points with Hyatt can largely only be used with Hyatt. So hopefully that helps as you're thinking about the best way to get points in miles and value, of where you're gonna get the most flexibility as well as most value. Okay, back to the example. So we perused the Upgraded Points blog, we're seeing, okay, we're gonna get either a Citi credit card or a Barclays credit card to get a sign-up bonus. Well, I'll save you a little bit of digging to tell you that Barclays actually has a really good American Airlines credit card where you will be able to earn 70,000 American Airlines miles off of one purchase. So if we're flying 2 people to the Maldives and it costs 70,000 miles per person, then in theory, we just need to open 2 credit cards. You're probably thinking, okay, but how do we get home? Well, yes, this is a one-way back. And for me personally, to save points, I actually just book economy on the way home. Economy 30 to 40-ish thousand miles and I'm good enough. I kind of see it as, it's the end of the trip, we're good with it, we're just gonna fly economy home. And so that's why I'm not focusing so much on trying to get a round trip off the bat. Now, this Barclays card is pretty straightforward because of the fact that it's one purchase and you're good. But oftentimes, you're going to have to get a credit card that actually has a minimum spend requirement, whether it's $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $15,000. So you have to be very cognizant of the fact that, hey, it might take you some time to hit the minimum spend requirements for some of these other cards. And so as you're thinking about booking travel, you want to get points as soon as possible so that when flight bookings are available, you can just jump on it. In a couple ways that you can hit the minimum spend requirement. The first one is leveraging spend. I was in New York 2 weekends ago. We were out with some friends celebrating. We went to see a concert. We went out for dinner the next day. We ended up spending about $1,000 across 18 people. That right there is your chance to put forward your credit card that has a minimum spend requirement and Venmo everyone else. Another example, last weekend, I was just at an Airbnb in Maine. It was about $1,600 for the 3 nights that we were there. Again, that's another situation in which you put for your card and you Venmo charge everyone else. That's probably my best recommendation for hitting a minimum spend. Other options include paying for a large tax bill, though this is really only applicable, say, around April, unless you have quarterly estimates you have to pay. In addition, maybe you could prepay for things like car insurance. Instead of paying month over month, prepay that all in one foul swoop. But regardless, be very cognizant of how many cards you're opening and your ability to hit the minimum spend. You do not want to open a bunch of cards and realize, oh my gosh, I actually can't hit the minimum spend and I won't get the sign-up bonus. If you can't do that, you're likely not going to be able to fly for free. Even though this is the third step of overall travel hacking, I will say that it doesn't hurt to kind of always have something going on here, which is always thinking about how can I get a sign-up bonus to earn more points, because in the points and miles game, the more points you have, the more flexibility you're going to have versus just knowing, hey, I have exactly 65,000. What can I get for it? You'll get something, but maybe if you had 120,000, you have a little bit more flex on how you want to travel or when you want to travel. And if you're interested to check out any of the top card sign-up offers that I've got going on and supporting the channel, feel free to check out any of the affiliate links, description down below. All right, step 4, using the points. First thing you want to do is, drumroll, Google. We know we want to get to the Maldives. We know we want to fly in business class on Qatar Airways Q Suites, and we know we're using American Airlines miles. What you want to punch into Google is how to book Qatar Q Suites to the Maldives using American Airlines miles. I know, folks, you're probably thinking, do you do anything besides Google? Aren't you supposed to be some sort of expert? I am not gonna sit here and tell you, yes, I know every single routing ever. I know some of the more popular ones, but at the end of the day, I'm giving you and teaching you the ability to search for any award space anywhere, and trust me, Google is going to be your friend. We pop that into Google, we see that amongst all the various options we have an article from our friends at Upgraded Points. So go ahead and click into there. In there, they'll be able to basically walk you through the step-by-step of how to actually book using your American Airlines miles. Now, I will say you're probably gonna spend a good amount of time here if this is your first time, because there's gonna be a lot of things you're putting together. You now know how you're traveling, what kind of points you're using, you might even have the points already, and now it's, okay, how do I actually use these points? But don't worry, this guy does a really, really good job of walking you from the A to Z. At the same time, the booking process sometimes isn't easy, and that's perfectly fine, because if it was easy, well, everyone would do it, and it would be very difficult to find award space. Let me give you that example. Remember the earlier flight I talked about taking my first flight ever, which was a first class redemption on Cathay Pacific? Well, to do that flight, I knew that I needed to get Alaska Airlines miles, which could be used to book Cathay Pacific first class at a great value, 70,000 miles and less than $57. Well, back then, in order to do that award search, I couldn't actually search on Cathay Pacific because they released different award seats for their partners. And so I had to go to their partners, but I couldn't actually search on Alaska Airlines because at the time, Alaska Airlines did not show Cathay Pacific availability online. So I used another partner, Japan Airlines, as well as trying to back validate with British Airways. So I used those two partners' award search to find a Cathay Pacific first flight. Once I found it, I then had to go back to Alaska Airlines and call them and manually tell them the exact routing I wanted to be able to then book for the flight. That was an absolute process. Nowadays, you can actually just find it online, and I don't know if that's actually impacted the availability of booking. I would say probably yes, because more people can do it more easily. But regardless, my point is, there's gonna be some learning curves, it's gonna take some time, but that's kind of the process that you're going to have to go to if you want to be able to redeem your points and miles for some outsized value. And in this stage, it's a lot more of an art than a science. There is no, okay, on this exact date, you're gonna be able to book for 5 seats. Some airlines are like that. ANA is an example I can think of in which you can kind of programmatically try to time out your award searches. But for the most part though, it's a bit of an art trying to piece together different itineraries. So do not get frustrated. Trust me, it'll come together. Some other resources that are great are Reddit, r/award travel, I believe, as well as Flyer Talk for some of the more popular award searches. In addition, there's a program I recently started using called Seats.Aero that actually does a really good job of showing availability of direct one-way award availability. And this is something I find that works well for, say, travel within the next 2 to 3 weeks, but there's no guarantee that you can get where you want to go to. And keep in mind, it's for one-way award availability only. A big piece of advice I have for folks in this space is have some flexibility. The more flexibility you have, the better shot you have at pulling off your redemption. So whether it's a flexibility in date or flexibility in your routing. Example, when I went to the Maldives for the first time in 2019, I wanted to fly on Q Suite. However, there were no flights from Boston to Doha to the Maldives on Q Suite, but there were flights from Chicago to Doha to the Maldives on Q Suite. And so I ended up actually finding a routing that departed from Chicago and went to the Maldives. Then separately, I was able to find a route that connected from Boston to Chicago, and I strung all of those together onto one itinerary, so I flew from Boston to Chicago to Doha to the Maldives. Yes, it's a little bit backwards, but I wanted to really try out the product. Now let's fast forward to the example that we're talking about here, in which we're searching pretty much a year out looking for availability flying from Boston to the Maldives. I actually wasn't able to find any, but knowing that there's Q Suites availability out of all the major cities flying into the Maldives, I quickly saw that, hey, wait a minute, what about New York? And we can see here that there is availability departing from New York, going to the Maldives, and so all I have to do is piece together how I'm getting down from Boston to New York, whether it's train or I could try to piece it together with an American Airlines flight. And finally, step 4.5, rinse, repeat, and run these searches in parallel. Folks, to be able to do what it is that you see all the people on Instagram or YouTube doing, which is flying for free, it takes work. You can't just flip a switch and say, here we go, let's do it. But at the same time, if you put in the effort, you will be rewarded, but it is gonna require some effort. So at this stage, what I highly recommend is, okay, you might wanna go to the Maldives. You might wanna use American Airlines miles. Maybe it's difficult for you to get American Airlines miles, so what are some other options? Well, in parallel, what if you did some searches using British Airways to use Avios? Or maybe you could fly on Star Alliance and you can do a search on Air Canada. Heck, what if there is some availability flying on Emirates or Etihad? Unlikely, but maybe. So it's all about getting creative, but running these searches in parallel has been the most beneficial for me so that I can quickly focus my energy on what's not just the best value, but has the highest probability of success. Because even though something is just such a great value, let's say ANA first class booked with Virgin Atlantic, it might be difficult to come by the availability. And so you want to really start thinking about that as you start going and doing your award searches. In addition, don't give up. Trust me. Yes, maybe your first search isn't fruitful, your second search isn't fruitful, but remember, you have a ton of different levers that you can pull. Can you change the date? Can you change your return? Can you have some flexibility on who you want to fly? The more that you can change, the better odds that you have in succeeding to pulling off a free flight. And keep in mind, don't get caught up with the people doing the first class, business class flights. If at the end of the day, you just want a free vacation and you don't want to pay $1,000 for an economy class ticket, that's perfectly acceptable as well. And that's it, folks. That is the end of the video. I hope that you were able to take something out of this. I understand that this is probably a very, very, very high level for those of you that are in the travel hacking game, though if you've never been in the travel hacking game, this might be something that you're starting to open your eyes to. Regardless though, I would love to have your feedback in terms of what you found helpful. Are there certain segments you want to dive even deeper into, or do you think this was enough to at least whet your appetite and get going? Regardless though, I will catch you all on the next video. Peace!